A very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to today's edition of The Agenda. My name is Toivo Jebela, your host. Tonight on the show we are joined by Obeth Kandjoze. He is the Director General of the National Planning Commission to share with us his perspectives and also his responses to some of the things that have been written lately in the papers about him, but also about the general development agenda in the country. DG, thank you very much for making time. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah.
I feel especially welcomed here.
Yeah, no, you are. Indeed, thank you. Look, I think the first thing that we must address, DG, is really what has been written in the papers in recent weeks. For me, the timing, I find it funny, especially for a matter that is not completely new, but somehow since the SWAPO Congress campaign started, somehow then this repetition of these reports. I want you to address the issue of the C60 investment contract that you, as then Minister of Mines and Energy, sort of, it said that you handpicked C60, gave them to Namdia to be their diamond valuator there. There was no expression of interest. There was no tender advertised. Why? What was the issue there? How did it go about? How did it come about?
Thank you. This is a matter much talked about.
Yeah.
And for lack of a better word, I would call it perhaps my own doing that I, in many ways, didn't come forth. Never spoke about my story.
Yes.
And not because it's a matter that I'm unable to talk about.
Yeah.
Not because it's a matter that is one way, shape, or another, an illegal matter. When one steps back to the diamond marketing and sales agreement, there are provisions within that as to the 15% window for Namdia, which is a decision by cabinet and was a decision by cabinet. So, in that decision, in fact, the process I found on the table at Mines and Energy, it started out with the then minister, Honorable Katai, and the GNT had done work around how do we accomplish this. Fast forward to 16 May, having done all the work around who would be our stakeholders, where's the market. So we ran a series of business undertakings overseas to Belgium, India, Dubai, and so many other countries. Just actually plugging out, do we have a market or not? Yeah. Do we have an appetite for this kind of window period? And we established that through a very formal process between the Bank of Namibia, the Ministry of Mines and Energy, the Attorney General's Office, and one other. And obviously the Ministry of Finance, that's the one other. At the time it was Honorable Kalish Letway. So the speed had it against our backs. That's May 16 when we signed.
Which year is that? 2016?
That was 2016.
Yeah.
That's when we concluded all the negotiations. And we had June, July, August to operationalize Namdia. And to the day, August 30th, we had done everything that was required for Namdia to be up and trading.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had teething issues of financing, seed financing, buildings, and all of these things. But we worked. Throughout all of that process, the copy of the Namibia Diamond Act never left my eye, so to speak.
Yeah.
I consulted heavily. The Attorney General, of course, was Honorable Saki Shangala at the time. And much of the work happened between these four offices: Finance, Mines, Attorney General, Bank of Namibia.
Yeah.
To the 30th of August, we were now faced with, are we ready to trade? We were ready to trade. In fact, there was an event before that where the 15% window part of the parcel was wrapped with all others for the usual destination. But then that got to be requested for separation, fractionate that out, and package it as a 15% window. And that's when all the financing for trading, the offices, the personnel, everything else had to be in shape. And I remember having, of course, that night I wrote a letter to the various export agencies, immigration and all that, PRU and all that, just to make sure Namdia had gotten its fair share of that export. Now, on the back of that was the provision in the Diamond Act, Article 45, 44 and 45. No. I had already solicited legal opinions from the Attorney General, which we extensively worked on. The chairperson of Namdia, and may his soul rest in peace, late Advocate Shakespeare Maziza, did not agree with the minister for the provision of Article 45 of the Diamond Act. And he opted to take a legal opinion from then, I think, senior counsel, if it is the right termination in law. Forgive me, I'm not a lawyer. Theo Frank. Yeah. And I have it here with me. I carry all these documents with me. You would understand why. So when that cleared me, it said you cannot expect the minister to literally value diamonds because the provision articulates it so meticulously. It says that no diamond, in layman's terms, no minister or no one can export a diamond that has not been valued. None of that can happen. It doesn't say, for want of a different interpretation, it doesn't say rely on the global diamond valuation, which naturally takes the pre-work of diamonds arriving from Oranyemund to NDTC. That gets valued by the GDV. So we read that provision and read and reread and reread and sat in boardrooms with Saki. And I also took the privilege of consulting lawyers that I know. And are we reading this provision well? That's when I knew that given the timing, given that we are ready, given the fact that we have the 15% window or the benefit assigned from the total package of Namdeb, that 15% was the price discovery diamonds for Namdia. Given that all of that was in place, it was now time to find a valuator. And that's in the provision of the Article 45, 44, 45. You can read the whole act if you want. It was clear that no diamonds can be exported. You need a certificate that valuation has taken place, and that is the law. So exporting a diamond without valuing, it's illegal. That's our law. The privileges of that act allows the minister to do exactly that. That's where C60 came in. And we needed to fulfill the provisions of the law. And C60 was appointed on that very basis. And that's how we got here.
That's how you got here.
Yeah.
The C60 itself, Minister, DG, how did it come in the picture? Because that could have been anyone.
C60 wrote an expression to the minister because they too, I guess, understood the provisions of the law. Now, and it doesn't say go to the public and run an expression of interest. That submission was made to the minister. We looked at it. We rejected it several times with the ministry. that it does not fulfill that part, doesn't fulfill that part. It was not fully written, and we worked hard they worked hard, not we. From our side as a minister, I needed to fulfill that. The company was registered, the company had directors, the company is seeded from Namibia and the usual stuff. So I checked that out, did a due diligence. And then I made myself happy that this entity, with the technology they put forward, they are qualified to be a valuation company for the export purposes of Namdia diamonds. That's how we did it.
Okay. They said when this whole C60 situation started being reported in the media, just want to read for you one of the sentences that the media reported, to say that C60 is also accused of having had access to confidential information on the government negotiation process and terms contained in the sales and marketing agreement relating to the Namdia purchase entitlement, even before it was made public. So the idea here is that C60 made a proposition to the ministry. They are in business, they're allowed to make those approaches. But for a matter that has not been made public, how would they have known that there was this deal coming and drafted and crafted their proposal so much to the satisfaction of the ministry like that?
The sales and marketing agreement is the basis of that suspicion. I have also read that Kandjoze and Saki leaked that information. But begin to trace, and the abilities for systems to trace how Kandjoze and Saki leaked that information cannot be a subject of suspicion today. Get onto our laptops, our cell phones, and trace that and prove same. Other than leaving it for the public to form an opinion, and that has become the characterization of how it became public. That's one. Two, like I said, when I was appointed minister, this was work on the table left by the previous minister. Between then and me and the rest of the team that concluded it, I don't know what could have happened. This was a subject so well known already, the details of which I wasn't at the composition of GNT. Remember, I was at NAMCOR at the time.
Yes. So
this area of suspicion is so wide. Narrow it down to me and give me my day in court. Jails are not made for some and others are excluded from it. If I'm guilty, bang me in the court of law and let the principles of justice take their shape, take their time. I will serve my time. But to just simply, repetitively, time and again, without any basis, say it's me who's done it, or unfortunately Saki who's done it, there is no evidence to that effect. And I denied quite categorically that such has happened. In fact, in my period at Mines, not many of my writings have gone public. That I knew. How did I do it? I would just draft a letter, give it to my driver, deliver it to the desk of that individual. Because I suspected that between my desk, my secretary, PA, and registry, things could go haywire. So I really took charge of what happened. So whatever the accusations is, I leave that for the imagination of the writers.
So Saki Shangala, the former Attorney General at the time, what role did he play there? Did he provide a legal opinion? What was his role there? Or did he suggest how the deal must be structured? How?
Such a deal, and even in your setup at NMH, you hardly do these kind of deals without a lawyer.
Yes.
Saki was the chief legal advisor of government, appointed by the appointing authority. There has been questions. Why have you never opted for any other lawyer? When I do such, it means I must find the resources outside government. And then that in itself becomes an illegal act. I will transgress what the law says. the chief legal advisor serves the entire role of advising government on matters of law. So the only office you go to is that of the Attorney General. So in the setup of this Namdia business, as it were, a minister would have been left with whatever, no other option but to go to the Attorney General's office. So in all of the cases that I dealt with, whether it was a license to be issued, whether it was for fuel, for export, for import, for mineral exploration, when I go and become unclear about where to proceed next, my next call was the Attorney General's office. I always consulted the AG's office. I checked the AG's work with lawyers that I knew, just to check, is it the same thing? In the Namdia case, I had the added benefit that the chairperson of Namdia actually differed with the minister. But that confirmation came back, and Advocate Theo Frank simply said, you couldn't falter the minister because the provisions of the law are clear. If you do, then you want to articulate against the law by saying, value the diamonds yourself. I don't have the skills. I don't have the equipment. The minister doesn't have the know-how. Other than you must contract in somebody who has the abilities, the fitness, the technology, and all that is required to value a diamond. And that individual at the time was C60.
DG, what was Shakespeare Mashiza's idea of how this must be approached? What is it that, how did he differ with you?
He differed with me on who to pay. And even in that judgment or legal opinion by, I think now is Judge Theo Frank, before he said, look, I'm not going to be venturing into who is to pay, who's not to pay. That is not the subject matter. The subject matter was whether or not the minister was right in appointing a diamond valuating company. So that was the real point of concern.
You spoke about C60 having demonstrated in their proposition an ability to do the job. C60, according to various media reports and our own investigations, is that it had the only capital it had really is political capital. It had no track record as a diamond valuator. In fact, C60 was originally a sanitation company called Amalolo Sanitation Traders. And as soon as this opportunity popped up, they simply changed the name. What confidence did you have that they could actually do the job?
Given the extensive write-up and business plan, the technology, to me what was clear was not so much the history of the company, but did they demonstrate stealth, depth of technology, and ability to do the work, or did they not? And when that final submission was made, it's not just the minister who sat down. It was the peers, it was all of us to look at this thing. And in that, the judgment was, also bear in mind that we were now holding the 15% diamonds for Namdia. We were very well prepared to start trading 30th of August, 2016. The only piece of the puzzle that was struggling to come to the fore was a diamond valuator. And we ran against time to make sure that we have a company that has what it takes, it understands the business, it fit for purpose, and it was able to execute our mandate.
Yeah.
That, to my judgment, satisfied that box. We ticked all of those boxes.
Yeah.
And we went on valuing diamonds. So that was really the focus of everything else.
Yeah.
You may argue that you did not apply your judgment far and wide enough. The technology, where it came from, it's an Israeli technology. And Israelis are known to be amongst some of the fiercest diamond traders, and they have deep expertise.
Yeah.
Remember that the Diamond and Marketing Agreement, one of its provisions says, commingle none of the Namdia environment with a price book of De Beers.
Yeah.
We must not mix that. That's why it was called a price discovery window. Namibia must go out to the market and price discover what is out there as a premium for Namibian diamonds.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, layman language type approach. That's really how I understood it.
Yeah.
And that was my focus. And had we not done what we did by the 30th of August 2016, that parcel would have been exported
Yeah.
amongst the usual. And Namdia would have gone on to lose that very first trading mark as a milestone. Two, the seed capital itself was solicited from the Diamond Fund.
Yeah.
And all of that through the legal opinion of the Attorney General. So throughout all of this, I knew there was nothing wrong I have done at law,
Yeah.
other than maybe a few technicalities by dates and when have they started trading here and there.
Yeah.
And insofar as the major objective and mandate was concerned, that played squarely within the law.
Yeah.
And this is why, from when I started, I said, perhaps I was at fault not speaking to anybody. But I also knew I did not trespass any law.
Yeah.
If I do, fine. The judgment in courts will leave to test that, hey, Mr. Kandjoze, you erred here and there and there.
Yeah.
And this is your punishment.
Wonderful. We go for a quick break and return for the second part of the show.
NMH Ad 1 brings you news from all across Namibia. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact nmh1@synergy.com.na. NMH Ad 1, your lunchtime news companion.
The Regional Review brings you news, views, and interviews from NMH correspondents from across the country. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact regional@synergy.com.na.
We continue the conversation with the Director General of the National Planning Commission, Obeth Kandjoze. Now, DG, again, still on that issue. There was a cabinet reshuffle in 2018. You were moved from the Ministry of Mines. You went to the National Planning Commission. And the speculation at the time was really that President Hage Geingob was not impressed with you insofar as this very issue is concerned. Did he say that to you?
No.
What reason did he advance to you for your move?
He, just like the letter he wrote, says you are accused of corruption. And the letter detailed it all. So you will be moved to the National Planning Commission, and that's where your duty station shall be. And that was pretty much the end of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I had arrived in from the mining in Durban in Cape Town and it was a bit of a tough conversation. If you remember that he had warned us not to travel, but I was prior approved before all that happened. Nevertheless, none of accusations of incompetency, in fact, him and I don't say much because I look at him as a senior citizen. I look at him as he could have been my own father. If you go back to how you are raised, you don't actually speak much against parents. Not to say that I forgot that this is government business, no. All the seriousness around the subject matter was felt in the room and right into my bone marrow on the moment. Then obviously there was the speech in cabinet which said it all, and I sat through it. I decided. Others afterwards, especially a particular cabinet minister, walked to me and say, "Hey, you fellow, don't be stupid. This is not about you. It's about the system." So I took that in, tucked my tail between my two legs and strolled into the NPC, where I have been since.
Wonderful. But that was quite an indictment then for the president to say, I am shifting you to NPC because that letter was damning. There were, I think, you were one of those government leaders that the president reported to ACC, if I remember correctly. And what was the conclusion of that?
To date, I have not been written by ACC nor my appointing authority insofar as that matter is concerned. So I should safely assume that if there is any investigation going on, it's albeit very reduced or it's moved into other aspects. I honestly have no clue as to what is happening and whether or not it's concluded. Not that I bother much, really, because we all wrote letters, and I spent about 2 weeks, I remember. The 4th we were moved, and we had the 26th of February to hand in our letter, which I did, I think, just shortly before closing of time, which was on the 26th.
Which letter is it now?
To explain myself whether or not the accusations as leveled in the letter stand ground in my opinion or not. If they don't, why? So, and in that period, I learned to, you write a letter and you put it down for a day, come back, go through it. You try and remove things that are combative, descriptions that are not businesslike, and you try and focus purely to the matter at hand. And I thought I achieved that well. And I had many annexes. I submitted 2 liver arch files with evidence alongside the letter of how I made decisions. At Mines, we used to have, in my time, what I called the Monday morning 8 o'clock meeting. So every director, because the Ministry of Mines and Energy is about licenses. Everywhere you try and be, it's about licenses. It's about research from the geological perspective. It's also from all other smaller parts. But the key primary issue is licensing. So we would justify why a license should be granted or not at the 8 o'clock Monday morning meeting. If you're not there, we would go ahead. But I literally, for much of the time, didn't issue licenses without going through not a management meeting, but an 8 o'clock Monday morning meeting.
Yeah.
That I used to have. I remember that. So whatever I collected from each of the heads of departments helped make the decision on when to sign, when not to sign. Explain why this license should be signed. And if it should be signed, tell me why. If not, say exactly that. So we used to have those conversations. So which gave me enough governance confidence in terms of what was going on. The number of licenses would at times fill up your entire working table on that space. And you have to sign each one of that individually. It is a very cumbersome process. Within that process, you can easily err. As all the types of licenses approach, the public is impatient. The public calls you names, they accuse, they come all over the show. They are entitled. It is their institution. But if you don't actually structure yourself in a manner that you can process this with the most accurate and fair mind of what the law allows you to do, you could easily fall between the cracks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the sheer number is overwhelming.
Yeah. One of the recent headlines suggested that you misled the ACC. Did you mislead the ACC?
No, at my heart, I would say no. Why do I say no? Remember, and I've just said, the sheer number of licenses that a minister has to process, and the sheer number that actually leaves your table and the next floods in, it's a careful balance of not just the business of geology, its consequences, and those investors waiting to get a chance. It's also a balance of what the law allows you to do or not. See, the administrative part of the law in this business is you have the right as a minister to issue a license. You don't have the right to withdraw a license. That's a court business. So that balance, you could easily forsake it for, by error, you're a human being, you can make those mistakes, or you could be intentional. So when it says, and by the way, I haven't seen the report spoken about. I have literally, at the time of me being investigated by whoever the fellow was, Leon, I decided, but look, I'm not going to cooperate with this. So I told him, can we end it here? And
Is Leon Yuste?
Leon Yuste. So Honorable Minister Yuste. I said, look, I'm not cooperating, going further. So, and that's how it ended. Whatever report he wrote, it was never submitted to me. I've never seen a shred of it. So for it to articulate that I've misled the ACC, I'm truly surprised. Do I have the capacity to be like an intelligence organization or a state in myself? I thought I'm just an ordinary guy who's there to do a job and serve the nation. So I honestly, evaluating that and reading, I don't even read these articles. Because for me, it's not my character, it's not in my DNA, it's just not me. Maybe they have better evidence. And I say to the authors of the article, please submit it to the ACC.
Let's shift gear here, DG, and talk briefly about the green hydrogen scheme. You, on top of things, recently had some sort of, I don't want to call it a fallout, but you had to respond to Job Panda making allegations about how this deal is being negotiated. Does Hyphen Energy have an upper hand in negotiations for this green hydrogen against the Namibian government?
I would like to believe that they don't have, for several reasons. One, we have prepared thoroughly to deal with hyphen, with all sorts of expertise required.
Yeah.
And we have a team of 24 expertise, both local, within the stakeholder ministries affected, and we've solicited additional skills and capacity from international expertise funded for by international organizations. So I would like to believe that by now, if we were actually being outwitted at it, you would have seen the papers riddled with an agreement that seems neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Put that against the clock of COP27, just concluded in Egypt, Cairo, or Sharm el-Sheikh. As I speak to you, that agreement is still pending. It's not been signed, based on a number of serious, complicated provisions that parties are still far apart. The judgment that we are being outwitted is a far outcry from the truth in looking at where we are. Every second Wednesday, we have a Green Hydrogen Council meeting where we get thorough briefings as to where we are. Those briefings happen at the council, made up of myself as the chair, the Ministry of Agriculture, Land Reform, Environment and Tourism, the Bank of Namibia. The governor sits on the council. We have the Ministry of Higher Education, the Attorney General's office is with us, so Ministry of Finance. So we have, out of that composition, appointed a team that I really am proud of, really is resourced to the extent that we are still holding out on very difficult provisions. It's impossible or near impossible for a sovereign state to be asked to forego or forsake its right to change the law, for instance, regardless of the circumstances, just as long as the equilibrium of the economics of the project is preserved. Now, those are strong, difficult provisions. We are holding apart from one another. We are moving closer. Also, the COP27 in itself is a date where we undertook as a government, we want to announce. We've had to climb down from that because it just couldn't materialize.
Yeah.
So the subject matter itself, for the fact that it is unknown, it's an emerging industry, there is care and consideration to be applied to exactly what goes on in an above 150-page document.
Yeah.
So we need to submit that document once it's near finalization. It goes to the Attorney General's office. Therefrom, it serves at the council, from which the council make a recommendation to cabinet for an update. And cabinet would then recommend that, okay guys, we are happy with these provisions. Now, right up to that point, we are still huddled in the negotiation corridors. So, calling it outwitted, weak, this, that, and the other, I'll say whoever characterizes this, please hold your fires. Yeah. You are not in the engine room, and it's cooking hot and fast.
Yeah.
So wait until we present it to your decision-making body, the executive, and hear what that resolution would say. For now, it's too early a call to make.
Wonderful. We go for the last break and return for the last part of the show.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namibia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news, and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact evening@synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.
Sunset News is a daily news show focusing on national headlines as well as international news. If you'd like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, please contact sunset@synergy.com.na. Sunset News. Don't end your day without us.
The show continues with Obeth Kandjoze. DG, in 2015, you entered the political space. You were this high-flying technocrat, business executive, newly appointed as MD of Namcor. And it hasn't been an easy ride for you, really, amid all this. I mean, people calling you names, people accusing you of things, getting reshuffled from the ministry to this and that. Is it something that you think about and say, what the hell did I do to my life?
At some point, it's inevitable. You will think exactly in how you described it.
Yeah.
But when you are like a cheetah never races for the pleasure of it. It actually would save its energy for the target.
Yeah.
So where I am, I was probably like a dog racing a cheetah, while the cheetah remained in its hole,
Yeah.
waiting for the day or the right moment, hour, for its next meal.
Yeah.
Politics made me that. Surely the business executive life has become a mixture of just about anything in politics. What you don't get pleasure at in the business world as you chase deal to another making of a deal is what you actually get in the circumstances of those you serve. I've never realized that in politics there is deal making. There is the downtrodden that gaze you right in the depth of your eyes and says, you write my hopes. Through you, maybe someday government policy will turn around and give me the hopes, prosperity to a life of poverty or downtrodden life of some sort. So those lessons have dawned and they have become part of my blood. The name calling in the early part of the game, they will twist and stay you at where you wouldn't like to be stayed.
Yeah.
That has happened. I've had my sleepless nights. I've had my nights to think, what the hell am I doing here? And. But as a human being, you learn to adapt, you learn to evolve, you learn new lessons. Your heart is opened to circumstances out there and how you would like to make a change. So one is at that point. Like I said, I see the authors. They don't bother me no more. I have called them names, just they have called me names. I would not, in the one bit I find so amusing about journalists is, You write about people you don't actually know.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of you have bothered just what is behind this facade. Have you ever had the time to say, Kandjoze, let's sit down for a cup of coffee? Or do you just chase breaking headlines after breaking headlines? You don't actually know me. You
But
know of one another.
But do we need to know you? We only need
Oh,
to
but-
know what you're doing in the public office.
No, but in the public office, when you have no evidence, why do you put somebody to the pain and slaughter of simply wanting to slander him?
Yeah.
Create the evidence. Be a caring journalist. If someone actually is and there is evidence, well, fine, throw that somebody to the dogs, as it were.
Yeah.
But if you have no evidence, it's now, after all 6 of us, it's me in the executive, left. You can call it whatever, I'm protected, this, that, and the other. But here I am, I'm not cleared. I don't know where I stand. I must be some real blue eye something, or blue boy something, as you call it. But I don't regard myself that. What is that actually, Toivo? So I've gone through a journey. I really have gone through a journey, and I regretted it at some point, but I grew to, be home with the circumstances you can't actually change.
Yeah.
I can't change whatever happened. I can't also remain bottled up with all sorts of feelings.
Yeah.
I need to get out, dance, and talk to people. The campaign did that to me, 2013, 2012, 2013, 14, through all of that. And then 2017, I felt it when others actually, throw you under this, they decampaign you, they say all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But where I am today, my family is intact. My soul, heart, and body is intact. I've just come through a campaign. We took the knock of losing. But what keeps the light burning at the end of the day is that our country is intact.
Yeah.
We need to work on aspects of how we remain as a credible ruling party. It's a challenge we have to actually work on. And finally, I cut my cake into the Central Committee. So
Yeah.
I suppose here from is keep the country together. We are serving a people. And that's a job politicians do. So I tell you a story of a young man at the service station a few years ago, just after I was moved from mines. At my village, Peterpos, I pull into the pump, taking a few liters of fuel. Here comes a young man and he says, "You," and he was speaking in Afrikaans, Jay is the Minister van Mines. I said, "Yes, I am." "Nou, hoeveel het jy gesteel? How much have you stolen?" And then I said, "Now what do I do to this?" And suddenly I realized this is a sovereign.
Yeah.
It is his resources.
Yeah.
He may not fully appreciate what has gone on for that to have happened. But I realized then that, this is what the president says.
Yeah.
When the sovereigns take disgust at something, you actually have nothing to do against it.
Yeah.
You must just get better at it.
Absolutely. The last question then to you, Obeth, is you just spoke about having made it to the Central Committee of SWAPO. There are serious questions being asked of the legitimacy of that process, and with some of the people who didn't make it actually trying to overturn the outcome. What has been your take on that?
You see, and this is the deal making in politics that I referred to. Pick your choices. Do you want a complete annihilation of what has gone wrong to the extent? Or do you stop at some point and say, look, can we rescue this for the good of everyone? Maybe that balance, the purity of righteousness alone may not be the guide to a successful, unified country. But somewhere in between, politics gets to argue. We have those in our system that are, and we have those at the bottom of it. Be it socio-economic stance or education or compared to anything else. I am of the view that we are where we are. We are all not happy. But the key word from those at the podium was, take it from this unity we see now and move on forward.
Yeah.
I suppose not many of us may want to identify with that, but that's the best prospect we are left with.
Indeed. DG, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, my brother. And, I'm happy to have been your guest.
Wonderful. Merry Christmas, as a matter of fact.
Same to you. Same to you.
Yeah, that is
Very nice.
that is Obeth Kandjoze. He's the Director General of the National Planning Commission, talking to us about a lot of issues. I hope he has now contextualized some of those issues that have been making headlines in recent weeks. Thank you for watching.
Tourismus Namibia is a weekly tourism show that brings you the latest news in the tourism industry and topics related to that. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact tourismus@synergy.com.na for news and advertising related queries. Tourismus, bring the world to Namibia.
My.NA Property Show provides viewers with the best in-class content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest property-related products and services. If you would like to feature your brand or your campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Properties, more than just a roof over your head.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namdia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news, and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact evening at synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.